Welcome back, Superboy Beyond fans. It's Tom and Chris here again. We have our special guest, the great and lovable Lou Koza, George Reeves historian. We're going to sit here and we're going to do a commentary on a great season 4 episode of Superboy, Paranoia, featuring the great Noell Neill and Jack Larson.
Indeed.
And I think this is the first time you've seen this in a long time, Lou, right?
Yeah. I didn't hit the play button yet. Should I have?
No.
Okay.
Don't hit it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. When was the last time you saw this episode, do you think?
When I prepared for our last podcast.
Right.
Okay.
So that was like more than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
About 6 months.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's been about that for me as well. Yeah. I watched this episode from time to time. I can't remember exactly when the last time I saw it was, but it must have been about 6 months, something like that.
Yep.
But
this has got a great whodunit feel to it. This episode.
Yeah, this is great. I really enjoyed it. You know, when I watched it, you know, years ago, you know, when it aired, I hadn't seen it until we did the podcast. You know, so that was how long ago? When did this episode come out? In what, the 90s, right?
1990, maybe?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
1991 was
it
episode
91?
6. So
right. Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you guys are ready.
Years.
Yeah. Time
yeah, it's
flies.
been a long time now. This episode's almost as old as I am. Anyway, go ahead and give them the spiel.
All right. So for all those of you joining us, there's not going to be any clips of the episode in it, no audio. There's going to be a very heavily filtered version right up there somewhere, probably right above Lou's head. So just so you can keep in track, because we all know crap happens. You got to go to the bathroom. Somebody comes to the door. The dog needs to go out, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to count you in with a 3, 2, 1. Oh my God! Because it's a Paranoia episode.
Okay.
So get yourselves ready. It is season 4, disc 1, episode 6, Paranoia. And I'm going to count you in with a 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh my God.
Alexander Salkind.
Yep.
The last Superman-related project that he would work on. Although I guess Alexander didn't technically work on this. It was mostly Elia. I know this is one of those things that he was producer in name only. I think he put up most of the cash. That's why he gets the credit.
Yep.
He's the boss.
Absolutely.
Stacey Haydock. She's on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't get her to do this episode. Or have you gotten her to do any? Have you gotten
we haven't got her on the show yet, but we plan to at some point.
Okay, good. Yep. I'm sure she'll be great.
I think that was the first time we've ever seen the Bureau from the exterior.
It may have been. I love the Bureau set, just that Art Deco style behind them. I just think it's a great looking set.
Or else.
And yeah, these two agents are actors who have been in multiple Superboy episodes. Usually they just change the wardrobe that they put them on. Sometimes they give them a mustache.
Jack and Noell.
Yeah.
Beautiful introduction.
Yeah, and I'm glad they actually give them something to do in this episode. They're not just sort of background or one scene actors.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
in
I
the
tell you,
entire thing.
I had always wished that one of these shows would bring them on, but I would have loved to have seen them play Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, where this was like a time travel episode where they played their old parts. I love that they're wearing their old clothes.
Yeah, they got Larson's in the bow tie.
Yeah, and also the sweater, the jacket.
Mm.
Okay, and Noel's got that old that 50s style outfit on. And it's also it's like a grayish outfit, which would be like reminiscent of the black and white shows.
Mm.
The closest they ever came to what you were hoping for, Lou, was that episode of Lois and Clark when Jimmy gets aged and they use Jack Larson as old Jimmy.
Yes, which was
Maybe
fantastic.
that's an episode. That's an episode we need to watch at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll make sure that when we eventually do a commentary on that one, we bring you back for that.
Now, did you see that? That's acting, because Noelle would never be like that. So that's pure acting on her part.
I think Jack Larson plays nervousness so well as well. Like he did it in Haunted Lighthouse, he was doing it great, but in this episode, it's almost like he's channeling some of the same energy there.
Yeah.
You just need him to have a little bit more sweat on his face, and it'd be exactly what he did in Haunted Lighthouse.
Right. I'm very sorry I never asked either one of them about this episode. I really wish I did. Just to, just get a couple of anecdotes about how they felt about it, and it just went over my head.
Yeah, we did have Gerard on the show just before Christmas, and he said that apparently Noelle said to him that he's her favorite Superman, and he doesn't believe that she meant it, but he said it was very nice of her to say. So
she was a sweetheart.
Yeah, that's the only bit of behind the scenes I know about this episode, to be honest.
Yeah, she was very sweet. She wouldn't hurt a fly.
And this actor, I'm feeling bad that I'm blanking on his name, but he's been in a bunch of episodes of Superboy, but I think he does a good job here as the fake Joseph Quinn. Or Flynn, rather.
He comes across very, very creepy.
Very, very creepy.
And I recall reading not too long ago. Oh, you see that slap? That was no Phyllis Coates slap, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you ever see, Phyllis Coates laid a bomb on Trevor Bardet in the episode The Human Bomb. Okay, and she said, "Here's a bomb of my own," and she just walloped them.
I tell you what, Noelle just plays grumpy so well.
Yeah, she was good.
Whereas Larson is basically playing like an older Jimmy, but Noelle is playing a very different sort of character. Man, I wish they brought in more actors from past projects for this show.
Wouldn't that
it would have been
something?
Cool to have? Yeah, like it would have been cool to have like a Margot Kidder episode where she could like come in and play a villain or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. That is pure acting on Noelle's part, because she could never do that in real life. What was interesting is from Superman and the Mole Men, you have the actor who played Luke Benson, Jeff Corey. He
Yes.
appeared in that television Superman show or movie. It's a bird, it's a plane.
Oh, the musical.
The
Yes.
musical, and Jeff Corey appeared in that, so that was pretty cool. Superman
I always
lifted
like
him up.
when they do that.
Yeah,
Any kind of legacy casting, I just think it's
it's
it's a lot of
terrific.
fun.
It's terrific for those actors. And Ben Weldon, he would appear in the Batman television show.
Hmm.
I think Billy Curtis appeared. Yeah, Billy Curtis appeared in the Batman television show. Billy Curtis played one of the mole men, and also Mr. 00-1.
The Martian, yes. I think he might have been good casting if they ever tried to do Mixes Pitlick on Adventures of Superman.
I just cannot
That would have been fun.
take that character.
Oh, I love Mixus Pitlick.
You
I just
do?
think he's such a pest. He's so annoying, but that's why I love him. You know, he's just
When I was
so
a
much
kid,
fun.
when I was a kid buying comic books, if he was on the cover, I didn't buy that comic book.
See, I'm the exact opposite. If I see him on a cover,
Really?
I have to buy it. Yeah.
Okay.
Same with
This
Bizarro.
poor woman.
Yeah. And yeah, they're playing up all these like fears and paranoia, like with the paranoia
Yeah.
and that. And Jack
Jeepers.
just said Jeepers. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, if you had Lane Smith, it would be Great Jingle Bells instead of Great Caesar's Ghost.
Yeah, he used to say as well with Lane Smith. He used to say "Great Shades of Elvis" because they
Yeah,
made him
yes,
such an Elvis fan.
But he did a few of them.
Oh
He
yeah,
did
yeah. I think Great Jingle Bells. I think that was from one of the Christmas episodes.
Yeah.
I think probably he was probably dressed as Santa at the time. I don't remember.
Could be. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, now we find the dead body.
So is this considered like a dark episode compared to most of them?
The show definitely went to darker places, but this is definitely not one of the light episodes. This is
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit more what's the word? Noirish, yeah.
Yeah. I had read, and I started to lead into this thought before, but I think he says that he had auditioned for the Superman Returns part.
No, it was
Brandon
Lois and
Routh.
Clark.
Lois and Clark.
It was Lois and Clark that he
And he
auditioned
had
for?
the role for all of 5 seconds.
And then they realized he admitted that he had played the part before.
Yep.
Yeah. And then it was like, we can't have this. We need someone new. And
right, but he's actually pretty good.
I think he's great in the role.
He's very good.
Yeah. And they did episodes where he went to parallel Earths and met other versions of himself that looked like him. So it's like, even if Lois and Clark didn't want to stick with the continuity, I think they could easily have still cast him in the role. None of the fans of Superboy would have minded. We would have known what was up,
Yeah, and it would have definitely guaranteed, all the Superboy fans coming onto the new show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I imagine most of them probably went onto the new show anyway.
Yeah.
I have to smile when I see Jack and Noel. Come on, they just so.
Like this, this is one of my favorite episodes from this season, and it's probably purely because of Jack and Noel. It's a good episode, even if they weren't in it. It would have still been probably up there for me. But the fact that they're in it just takes it up a notch.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate as well, like both of them as actors, they're playing it much more like modern television, like the era that they're doing now.
Yeah.
They're not doing their sort of 1950s style performance.
Right. And what's nice is that they have a significant role in the episode. And let's just think about, the Tom Cruise movie War of the Worlds, which I like. A lot of people don't. I do.
Oh, I thought
But
it
at
was
the
fun.
end, you had Gene Barry, and I forget the actress's name that was in, the original film War of the Worlds. But they only had a minor moment. Okay. Noel had a pretty decent part in the beginning of Superman Returns, but I tell you, I didn't care. I thought they should have given her something better where she wasn't lying, in bed, with the sheets, up to her chin.
Yeah.
And then Jack had a great part, but again, they were very small parts. But
whereas they're actual key characters in this episode, aren't they? So they actually have something. It's not just a cameo, is what I mean.
Right.
It's
would have been nice if they had a recurring role.
That would have been cool,
Yeah.
There's a character that's a recurring character in the last 2 seasons he's a blind man who sells newspapers.
Yeah.
I don't know that could have been a fun part for Larson to have. I'm sure he would have been fine.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood where you were heading.
Yeah.
Yes, and there was Robert Shane in The Flash.
Yes.
Right, and he played the
blind news vendor.
The blind news vendor.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how Superboy and the Flash both had that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of role that I think Larson would have been good for.
Absolutely.
You could have had Noell Neill. She could have played like the wife of Dennis Jackson, the bureau chief who's here.
Yes.
That would have been fun. Although I don't think he's married in the show.
No, he's not.
Quick rewrite. He's married now. Stick Noel in there.
I like that his name in the episode is Lou. Like me.
I mean, he is just channeling Jimmy with this. Like the nervousness of Jimmy.
Yeah, and the other part that's really funny is he says that when I used to take paper clips when I worked at the newspaper.
Yeah.
Nice little reference there.
Again, I'm so sorry I never asked him about this.
Maybe someone else did at some point. I'll just need to hunt out like an old
I'm sure
interview
somebody
or something.
did. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever read anything in any magazines of about this episode. Stuff like Starlog and cult movies and film facts. All those wonderful old those magazines that the subjects are of all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if Larson ever went to Superman Celebration, because if he ever did a panel there, that's probably the place where somebody might have asked him about it.
Oh, definitely, yes.
I might have to look on YouTube later just to see if he ever did do one that was filmed.
Right.
Even if he never mentions Superboy, I'm sure it'd still be an interesting watch.
I tell you, they played up the paranoia very well.
Yeah.
Especially
and the only one who's not affected is Clark.
Right.
I guess that's just his Kryptonian physiology, isn't it?
Well, it's like, he walks in fire. It doesn't affect him, But then again, there's this thing about magic that Superman is
he's weak to magic.
Yeah. Would you think that would apply to this?
No, I think with this, just it's the aliens that are affecting them. I think they say that they just radiate emotions or something, and they try and give it like a pseudo-scientific explanation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like psychic abilities.
Yeah.
And
I guess
it
if
has
they
been
said it was
stated that
magic.
Superman is vulnerable to psionic abilities, so
Yeah.
maybe these are very low level, so he's not affected.
Yeah. Like they affect the humans around them, but that's it.
Look at that padding shoulders, the clothes.
Yeah, the 80s fashion in this show.
Yeah.
There's some episodes that the fashion is just shocking.
Oh, the 80s were a bit much.
Yeah. There's an episode where there's a character, Andy McAllister, who's played by Elan Mitchell-Smith, and he has a pair of sunglasses that are pink sunglasses, but they look like sort of Cyclops' visor. They're just like one long lens going around. It's
right.
They're the weirdest looking sunglasses ever, but yeah.
Ice cold. That was great. That was a pretty good move.
Yeah. And this character, Matt, who's in the middle there, he's in a lot of episodes from the last 2 seasons. He's not in every single one, but he's in most of them, and he always does a good job.
Interesting that Jack is still holding the gun. Tony Mannix had, eventually gotten the gun, the German Luger that had killed George Reeves. And she wanted to give it to him. And he just flat out refused. He wouldn't have anything to do with that gun.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anything to do with it.
No.
Neither would I.
There are a ton of things connected to George Reeves that I would love to have in my collection that is not even close to being on the list.
Right.
Like, no
That's
way.
right. Yeah. I often wondered, where is that gun now? It's probably in some collector's cabinet and he doesn't even know it.
Yeah. I think if I got that gun, I would just want to melt it down, just reuse the metal for something that, something unrelated.
Yeah.
Just never let it be a gun again.
What's been told is that, the gun was given to him by Tony and it was owned by Eddie, her husband. And I think the reason it was given to him was to protect his dog, Sam the Schnauzer, when Sam would go out, before they all turned in for the night, Sam would go out in the backyard and do his business. And I think George would stand by the doorway, probably just in case, one of the coyotes or what other predator might be in that mountains, that were behind his house.
Yeah, if it's California, there's probably a couple of mountain lions.
Yeah, so I think that was the origin of him having that gun. Just a theory, but we do know that it was given to him by Tony Mannix.
Now, this is the only actor in this episode who I can't decide if I like his performance or not. I think he does a good enough job, but his voice, I don't know, it sounds like he's doing a radio voice.
Well, he's
maybe he was known for radio. Maybe that's just his voice.
Yeah. But as a character, he's an alien. So maybe he's being more adapting to, the speech pattern and hasn't really nailed it yet, kind of say.
Yeah.
So that was season 4, episode 6, Paranoia.
Yes.
Guest stars Jack Larson and Noell Neill.
Excellent. Excellent.
One of the best episodes from season 4, I think. It's great just to see those two actors performing.
Yeah. And he's a worthy, I get, it's hard for me to say Superboy because he doesn't look like a boy, right?
No.
But is he supposed to be like under 18?
I think he's under 20. I think it ends. Doesn't it end with his 20th birthday? Is it his 21st? It might be his 21st birthday.
I think the series ends with his 22nd birthday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but the first 2 seasons he was at college, and
so that's
then the
18 and 19.
Yeah.
See,
to me,
and then he was in the city.
Yeah, Superboy to me is,
A little bit younger.
14, 15, you know.
Yeah.
And even,
Well,
it's funny because Anthony Desiato, does the digging for kryptonite.
mm,
He has the same kind of issue with Jimmy Olsen because he's called the boy, what is it, the Cub reporter. They
Yeah.
often refer to him as the boy,
mm,
and but Anthony, he's been trying to figure out, well, how old is he? Is he really a boy?
yeah.
So interesting.
It's one
So
of
there's
those
that
things.
Yeah,
transition.
it depends upon the era that you're looking at. I mean, Jimmy, the way he's been portrayed in the movies, at least, is like 20, 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, let's face it, by like Superman 4, like, Jimmy's losing his hair in Superman 4. Like, he doesn't
Right.
look like a kid anymore. He looks like a guy. He looks like what he was, like a guy in his like early to mid 30s.
Right. Right.
But I guess
Yeah.
that's just what happens after almost a
Right.
decade.
What
of
is that
making
actor's
movies.
name? I'm sure I think
Mark
it's
McClure.
Mark McClure.
McClure, right? Mark
Yeah.
McClure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he was pretty
great.
good. Yeah, he was great.
He looked a bit too old by the end. But
Right.
that wasn't even just him. Margot Kidder had aged a fair bit since her last appearance as well.
Right.
They all had, really. Reeves
Yeah.
doesn't look exactly as he did.
Right. Right.
But the only one I think who does look identical to the first movie is Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
It's just because
Yeah.
I think he just looked the same age for about 20 years at one point.
Yeah.
It's the Sean Connery and the Morgan Freeman syndrome.
Yeah.
Once you reach peak awesomeness, you don't go anywhere else for a while.
Right. Right. Yeah. They've been showing on Facebook, images of Gene Hackman, and he's in his 90s. I think he's in his 90s, and
Yeah.
he's old and frail. And if he's at the store or he's coming out of a supermarket, leave the guy alone. Just
Yeah.
don't.
I don't know
bother
why
him.
people are still bothering him. Yeah, he retired.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have been retired for about 10, 15 years by this point.
Right.
You know, Jack Nicholson is the same. He's been retired for quite some time. But yeah, I guess they
Right,
still can't
right.
go anywhere in public without someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So-
Right. It's one
a
thing if
photo.
they show up at an awards show and
But yeah.
and they're entering there, but in their private life, let them be.
Leave them alone.
Leave them alone.
Yeah. Yeah. When I worked at the Blockbuster over in Lindenhurst, and
I remember.
we used to have a gentleman who would come in all the time. One Dan Lauria from the Wonder Years, the father.
Yeah.
And he would come in all the time because his mother lived in Lindenhurst. And I would say hello to him. I'd say, I'm a big fan, but I'd never pester him for an autograph. I'd just let him go about his business.
Yeah.
And then when I worked over at the Lindenhurst Optimum store, Keen Holiday from Matlock would come in because he was living in Lindenhurst at that time. And I never pestered him for an autograph, never asked him to get a picture with him. And then the last time I saw him, he actually said, "Chris, did I ever give you an autograph?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Hang on." And he goes out to his car and he brings in this little card for a play he was doing, and he autographed it to me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I bumped into this guy, Christian Jacobsen, in Target, and I didn't bother him for an autograph.
That's because nobody knows who we are.
I bump into you here and there, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think
I
the
bumped
only
into your
time.
son-in-law yesterday. Of course, I was at his store.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I got to go
I've
there
only
myself.
I've only pestered someone for an autograph once, and I was working at a theme park at the time, and an actress named Diane Morgan, who you may not know, but she plays a character called Philomena Kunk, she's got a Netflix series and all of that. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Wow,
but yeah, I wasn't technically allowed to, but I did ask for an autograph with her.
I'm not an autograph seeker, but I have them.
I just figured I wouldn't get another chance.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan. So
I've gone to some of the collectible shows, and there were times like I went to Neill's house a couple of times, and you know, and then she'd go, you know, she'd sign, you know, a picture to give it to me. I'm like, no, you know what? You don't have to do that. I already have like 6 of them, you know. But you know, sometimes they just came my way, you know.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, but again, I don't really like, you know, go out to try to get, you know, as
I don't
part of.
think I've ever sought them either. It's not something that I seek after.
Yeah.
But
The only
you know,
time I seek them out is when they're at the conventions,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I mean that's the right place for it, isn't it?
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just the ones that I want to get. You know,
Right.
the last convention that I went to was Eternal Con before that collapsed, and I got Lee Majors,
Wow.
and I got to shake his hand too,
Wow.
and his bionic hand did not crush it.
I was gonna say, there was a Superman, you know, fan, Doug Switz, okay, and he was trying to get he was trying to collect all the autographs of every actor and actress that appeared on the Adventures of Superman, and he did really well. I mean, of course, he, you know, if he got anybody, you know, that was passed away, of course, you know, he would have bought them from a dealer or something. But he did really well in getting those autographs, and he's now passed away. And little by little, his sister is selling off his collection. You know,
Oh, that's a
he was
shame.
very knowledgeable in knowing about the costumes, you know, the Superman costumes, whether they were the Christopher Reeve or the George Reeves, and he was, you know, really trying to identify what was authentic and what was, you know, I'm going to say aftermarket, fan produced, and
Forgeries. Yeah.
yeah, forgeries, and because there were, you know, a few of those that are out there.
There are
You
a
know,
lot of them still.
yeah,
You know, I know there
which
are
sours the
forgeries of.
interest.
Yeah, I know there's even forgeries for stuff that Superboy has had
Yeah,
done. You know, there's costumes and capes and stuff where every now and then they'll be up at auction and it'll turn out that it's a fake.
yeah,
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often. It seems to be very
right,
rare with Superboy,
right,
but it's kind of
yeah,
weird that it's still happening.
yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
the problem is that, you know, especially if you're buying a Superman item that you believe is real from another fan. Okay, in some cases that fan doesn't know, but the origin of that forgery, okay, if that person is a Superman fan, okay, and they're creating these things, the mentality that I found with other Superman fans that are looking to buy things that are authentic is that they're so excited to buy something that they think is authentic, and they'll just, you know, blindly go into it, okay, trusting because they believe that, you know, anybody that's a Superman fan, okay, and is selling something wouldn't be, you know, crooked.
Yeah.
Okay, they
Unfortunately, that's
wouldn't
not the
be,
case.
but that's
Yeah.
not the case. You know, you really have to, if you're going to buy something, and especially spend a good deal of money, okay, you really need to seek out experts. Okay, don't just believe that it has a letter of authenticity. Okay, because that
Anyone can
name,
make one of those,
right,
you know.
that name has no meaning. Okay,
Yeah.
and the words on there have no meaning. If you can find somebody that can authenticate it, like who's the costume designer for the Superman Chris Reeve movies? Is that like Yvonne Blake?
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you either.
Okay, I forget, you know, her name, but that would be a person that you would seek out. Okay,
Mm.
and somebody that knows costumes. Don't just go by some letter of authenticity with, you know, with a name on it. Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's meaningless.
I think if I
So
was going to buy anything, like, I mean, I can't afford to, but if I was one day to buy something from the Reeve movies, I think someone like Jim Bowers, who runs Caped Wonder, like
Jim's the best,
he's taken so many pictures,
right?
like close up photos of those costumes. I figure if anybody would be able to tell me if it's real or not, he'd probably be the
Absolutely.
guy.
No, Jim is top notch. Jim is the best Jim I know. Okay.
Yeah, you
And
had that. What was it? Mr. Reeves, like the comic book you did of George Reeves's life. That's on Cape Wonder, isn't it?
yes, it is. Yeah, he really bailed me out. I'm going to be honest with you because I didn't know where to place it. Okay. And, and the subject matter doesn't really fit his Caped Wonder website, but he was gracious and so wanting to do it. Okay, I was greatly appreciated by his wanting to place it there to give it a home. You know,
Yeah.
The
so
fact as well that you formatted it like a comic book, no doubt
yeah,
helps as well,
yeah,
because that really does fit the tone of Caped Wonder. Superman imagery, even for
yes,
the parts of your comic that don't have Superman in it. You've still
right,
got the link. So
yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. You know what it is that I just I was always wanting to write, a long narrative, book like on George Reeves, and I've started it several times over. Okay, but when I walk away from it, okay, and don't come back to it for a month or two, it's very difficult to pick up that momentum.
yeah,
Okay, but with visuals, okay, I'm much better at, and I've really gotten pretty good at the Photoshop. So, so I just combined it, and then, if I was to walk away from, doing those graphics, those pages, if I was to walk away from it for a week or two, or even a month, just seeing the visuals, I can just get right back into it.
yeah,
Okay. With the text, I have to go back and read 10 pages of it, okay, to get that where I left off and get that momentum again. But
Yeah.
but I am still working on it because I have written about George Reeves many, many times over of various different details. And now I'm piecing it all together, everything, all my ideas and theories and, who I spoke to. And then I'm just starting from, I have started it and then just working my way up from, his early life and his family history and working it through all the way up to, the years of his, nearing his death and then, the aftermath. Okay. But it does get on into some touchy subjects like, you know, um, you know, who is responsible? Okay. And that's really a tough place to go.
oh
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
You could come up with all of this, the circumstance evidence and all the evidence that doesn't make any sense. Okay. And then try to follow, the bouncing ball. Okay. That'll get you into, proximity of what makes sense. But when you start pointing fingers at somebody and don't have the evidence for it, okay. Now, Gene LaBelle, he flat out said Lenore Lemon did it. He goes, I bet my life on it.
mm,
Nobody ever came after him. Okay. But um, but when you start getting into the territory of how did she get away with it? Okay, who was at risk of their reputation? Okay, being connected to her. Okay, and did that person pull any strings or call any favors in? Okay,
mm,
or put pressure. Okay, it's hard to figure out how. I have the ideas of who the players are. Okay, but it's very difficult to pinpoint it because um, then you could get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
I mean,
so
even let's face it, they made the movie Hollywoodland, and they put a few theories sprinkled into that movie to sort
yeah,
of give the audience some idea, but obviously they
right,
couldn't
right,
go into real
right, yeah.
depth with it because
Yeah, they couldn't
they
go
could have
too
ended up
far.
getting sued even, you
Yeah,
know.
there was a lot that could have been done with that film. And in fact, a better presentation would probably be, to do Reeves justice, from his whole life, to do at least, 6 episodes, in an hour each in a streaming. Okay.
That would be great. I'd love to
Yeah,
see that. Like
because
a
there's
mini
so
series.
many players, there's so many players in this, and a lot was left out of the film. And what Paul Birnbaum did with the script, okay, of the 3 theories, that's nothing new. Okay,
Mm.
that, we'd been talking about those 3 theories for years and years, and he just put it in writing and they made a movie. Okay, so it's not like he invented those
No,
theories.
no.
Okay, and it's
It,
not
it was a
like,
great way to present them to the. I always think of it as like they present the theories to the audience in their most
yeah,
simplistic form, just so
yeah,
I guess they're hoping that the audience will then go and read up on it in their own time.
yeah,
But
yeah. I will give, yeah, the movie did succeed in presenting, the 3 theories on the big screen. Those 3 theories, as you watch them, are the theories that are in the head of the character, Louis Simo.
mm,
Okay, the fictitious investigator. Okay, and I think they did a great job in that. And Simo represented it. He represents everybody, all the people that think about, the case, think about what happened. He's
mm,
he's from our point of view. Okay, and I think Paul Birnbaum, the writer, the script writer, the writer of the script, did a great job in doing that. I really do. Okay, but unfortunately, it was laced with a lot of inaccuracies. Okay, which just throws the case into further confusion, to the point where nobody wants to even talk about the case anymore. Oh, it won't
mm.
bring George back. Why do you even bother? But there are cases I read in the New York Times all the time that date back to decades, and there are people that are still trying to explore and not give up on subjects. And
Yeah.
there was a woman on Long Island who was just recently in the Newsday newspaper, and there was a police officer. She was killed in 2003, and they finally solved it, and they just recently apprehended the guy who killed her. Okay, but he didn't give up. You
Yeah.
see,
You shouldn't.
Jack Larson always said, and he said it to Jan Allen Henderson first, we will never know what happened that night. Okay, so I I get what he's saying. We'll never really get the exact thing, but we could change the narrative, okay, by eliminating what is wrong, okay,
Yeah.
eliminating the things that, that are, that are just flat out not correct,
Right.
okay. And then once you find the information, and then you piece the right information in there, then you could move along. You could follow the bouncing ball, okay. But in the past, and then all of the modern day writers, when they start making up things, okay, and then there's all of these fabrications, the bouncing ball stops, okay,
Yeah.
because people
It
go, well, that
muddles it.
doesn't, yeah, and people go, well, that doesn't make sense, but then they don't explore it further,
Yeah.
Right.
okay. If you explore further and find the truth, okay, then you could move along the timeline better, which is, you know, part of the reason why I put together the George Reeves archives books, because over the years, you'd read this, you'd read that, you'd read this, and you jumbled all over the place. Okay,
Right.
but the archives books takes all of the articles, the magazine articles, the newspaper articles, and the photos, and it puts it all into chronological order. Okay, not the stuff that people wrote in Film Facts or Starlog, it's the newspapers and the magazines. So if you can follow that, okay, in the timeline, then you have a better shot at, seeing how things developed, where these people, because it's not only George Reeves that is in these books. There's the history of Eddie Mannix and Tony Lanier, okay, and all of these people, Lenore. I got articles on all of these people dating back to 1926 and throughout. And so when you see how they all fall in, it's all weaved together, and then you start to see how it progresses to when they're all in the same orbit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even think that just the idea of putting it into chronological order, you wouldn't even think that would be such an outlandish concept, because you're right. Reading it in the sequence of events in the order that they happened, of course it's going to be clearer for the reader.
It becomes much, much clearer.
Yeah.
And then when you start debunking things like Frank Besselo committing suicide. Frank was George's stepfather. Okay, well, that just never made sense. I mean, early on I bought into it, okay, because I didn't know better. But when I started exploring further, okay, and with the help of a library researcher, okay, she found Frank's death certificate, okay, and so she put together an amazing narrative about it, and together, we proved that Frank Besselo did not commit suicide, as been told as fact and regurgitated by other writers over and over and over. And it all started in 1981. Okay. And so for 30 years, 34 years, that, misinformation, led a lot of people astray. Okay. And so I sorted that all out because, there's the lie, that was, that Helen told George in 1934 that his father, committed suicide. But, people thought that she meant Frank Besselo, but she meant Don Brewer. But it was again, a lie, because Don Brewer didn't commit suicide. But there's more to it than that. So I sorted that all out. Okay. And now people who believe in the theory that George committed suicide, okay, can't use Frank Besselo's death to support that. Okay. Maybe he did commit suicide. Okay. But you can't prove it either way.
And
Okay.
the evidence seems to suggest otherwise. The evidence that's there, like his death certificate, as you said, suggests that's not what he died from.
The evidence and also the sequence of events that follow. Okay, the things going, the body going to, the funeral home, and I have ideas of why that happened. Was it a mistake? Okay, did the deputy coroner just say, because he ruled it a suicide, okay, just christened the body off? But the thing is that all suicides require an autopsy, and they didn't do that. And then when they did do it, okay, to backtrack or backfill or backpedal, whatever you want to call it, when they did it on a body that was, not in its original evidence state. Yeah. So, there's a lot of things, and there's far more to this. Okay. But the thing is that with Frank Besselo, the people who were, on that idea that he definitely committed suicide, even his stepfather did it. Okay. And then there were stories that another relative did it, and that relative didn't do it. Okay. But people were using it to support, that it was in the family, and George Reeves, you know, was influenced by that. But none of that happened.
Right.
Okay, and that's the sad part about the George Reeves story, is the accumulation of misinformation. Okay, and you know, all of these great experts out there, okay, they don't do anything about it. Okay, there's only one guy that has made, you know, a great effort in trying to um, help, you know, clear, you know, the narrative, and that's Jan Allen Henderson, and he wrote Speeding Bullet. Okay,
Mm.
and a lot of my work, a lot of my research, okay, has that book as a foundation, and what I've done is up and above, you know, Speeding Bullet, and Jan, you know, did a great job in surmising things. Okay, and he found out a few things of his own. Okay, and so when you start looking at the big picture and you start looking at it in order, okay, things become much more clearer. Is it foolproof? No. You know, I mean,
It's
I'd
never
be
going to be, is it?
lying, or I'd be faking you, or I'd be, you know, blowing smoke up your nose, or you know, trying to get you to convince you what I'm saying. No. Is it foolproof? Are there exceptions to the rules with any of the elements? Yes. But people with the theory of suicide, they will say, no, 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 absolutely. I grew up. He was my hero once. He's still my hero. But I grew up, and I know because I go out and drink with my buddies, and you know, he committed suicide. I'm certain of it.
Mm.
But they don't
They
know.
don't have
No,
proof, though. Yeah.
they don't have proof. They don't know, and anybody talks to, they don't know. You know, they'll just, you know, give you. Well, you know, I remember going, you know, to a bar with George, and he was a little, you know, a little nutty, a little crazy. Well, you know what? Sports jocks can be like that. They could be a
He
little,
Yeah.
was also an
little,
actor, and
yeah,
let's face it, actors are a little bit nuts. Like,
right, yeah,
especially
yeah,
the method ones. I know he wasn't a method actor, but still.
right, yeah. There's a lot of playtime in Hollywood when things are down. You know, in between
Yeah.
filming, it's an adult sandbox. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so, but I didn't mean to get on this kick, but you know,
Well, I'll tell you
uh,
what we'll do. Since you brought up the idea that to really do George's life justice, you would have to do it as like a TV miniseries of 5 episodes.
yeah, yeah.
Do you have any actors in mind that you think could make a brilliant George Reeves? Because I'm trying to think to myself if there's anyone that I can picture playing George Reeves. I don't know if I've got anyone at the moment.
You know, I sometimes, you know, you watch television, and you know, you kind of like do, hey, that guy kind of looks like George, you know, but I haven't really, you know, nailed down anybody's names. But,
No.
but you know, there's, you know, guys out there, you know, that have that kind of look, you know, that
I think a
probably could
young,
do.
like he'd be too old to do it now, but like a young George Clooney might have been an interesting choice. Like he's got a similar
I think
sort
at
of
one
look.
time, yeah,
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 it would have had to have been a young George Clooney, like not
yeah,
now, obviously,
right,
but
Yeah.
right, right.
yeah.
I
I
I
thought
didn't
Affleck did a good enough job. I didn't think
I
Affleck was
I
bad.
yeah, I thought Affleck did good. He had a right look for it. He just I just think he didn't have, you know, the best script to really bring out George's, you know, qualities, whether they were good or
Mm.
bad. Okay, you know, he did fine, but you know, the film itself was missing so much, you know, from the real George Reeves, that, you
Mm.
know, Ben was unidentifiable as George Reeves. He could have
Yeah.
done better with a better script, you know. Um,
I think it's mostly hurt by the fact that, for a movie about George Reeves, he's not the focus of it. Pretty much at any point, it's all focused around like the Adrian Brody character. Like George
yeah, but
Reeves
I
is
thought,
basically just playing
yeah,
it in retrospect for flashbacks and stuff
well,
like
it's all,
that.
yeah,
But
what's, you know, he takes on the case, and anything he sees of, you know, anything that he sees in those theories is what's in his head. and we all have
Mm.
theories. Okay, so Paul Birnbaum said that this film is fictional, and at the time I had a problem with that because my feeling was is that if you're going to do a fictional story about a real person, that fictional story should be as accurate as possible. Okay, but what happens is
Mm.
that they fall back on the word fictional so that they could take liberties, creative liberties. Now, with the George Reeves case, you do have to inject, okay, to get from here to here, okay, from here to here, you do have to fill in, okay, and that fill in becomes the fiction part, okay. But in the case of Hollywood Land, there were things that were done, okay, that, that they took facts and altered it, and then that became fiction, okay.
Mm.
But Hollywood does that all the time,
Yeah,
okay.
maybe they thought, they probably just felt that it made for a stronger movie or something. Maybe just for the story they wanted to tell, maybe it fit that narrative better. But
Absolutely, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I always think if you say it's based on a true story, even if you're saying that it's still a fictionalized version of that story, I think you're right. They need to bring those details up just a little
right,
bit more, just so
right,
you don't muddle and end up making new disinformation.
right.
Yeah.
You
If
know?
when you read, my story, Mr. Reeves, right, and I have the theory and the idea that Toni Mannix handled George's checkbook just like
Mm.
she did Eddie's. Okay, and so and that following the money, okay, in that story, I think expresses a lot because you know when Tony and Eddie got married in 51, it was all meant to secure the Mannix fortune. She was taking care of the house. Eddie, she would, she was handling the bills so that Eddie could go and, gallivant and, go golfing and do what he wanted. Okay. So she had a roof over her head. He gave her, an allowance. Okay, so she could do whatever she wanted, spend it however way she wanted, and she basically controlled, the household spending.
Right.
Okay, now that's my theory. Is it true? I don't know, but it makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Okay, so it would make sense to me that you know she helped George, when he came back to California to get, established probably in the apartment, and then later on, when he bought, the house. Okay, she probably helped him with a down payment, but she likely was handling his checkbook, how, paying the bills. But you see,
Mm.
it may have given people the impression that she was buying everything for him, that she was spending all of, spending
Right.
her money on everything that he needed. By 1953, okay, he had did Superman, he had did some other films, he had some money, okay, so but if the impression was that she paid for everything, okay, she let people think what they wanted.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Doesn't sound
it
like she
just wasn't.
much cared what people thought.
She didn't care what people thought, and if that's what they thought, who didn't bother. It
Mm.
meant nothing to her.
Right.
So if they thought that she bought him gifts, and I'm sure she bought him gifts. Okay,
Oh yeah.
all right, because she was trying to keep him in. She was trying to keep him in her orbit. Okay, you didn't want her. She wanted him to feel obligated. She wanted him to feel, that she was helping him. Okay.
Mm.
But, and so, he stuck with her for a while until she became, overly smothering. Okay. And then he figured, his career is impeded. Okay. For whatever those multiple reasons are. And he needs to break away. And that's what he did. But unfortunately, he got himself in, hotter water,
Yeah.
so.
It's all good food for thought, and I think it's a good place to end this episode.
Yeah.
If you want to tell us, people watching this video, if you want to leave us a comment, like if you've got a theory,
Absolutely.
maybe, we'll run it by Lou next time he's on the show.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for watching.
What was that the cab show? Let's make a phone call. The reach out, call out. What was that, Chris? Cash cab.
Yeah, cash cab.
Right. The cab driver would ask you, questions, and if you get them right, you earn money. And if you're stuck, you could make a phone call, and call a friend, or a relative, and see if they have the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
at some point at some point we'll be doing a commentary on that episode of Lois and Clark that Larson was in. We'll bring you back for that, hopefully. And if anybody has any questions for Lou, leave them in the comments section, and we'll get to them on that day. So thank you all so much for watching.
If there's a lot of questions, we'll bring you back just for a question and answer day.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that would be fun too.
That doesn't always mean I'm right.
Still, though, you've got more knowledge in this subject than either Chris or myself does. So,
And whatever knowledge I have is because I know Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The George Reeves story is very fascinating. Extremely fascinating. So, okay.
Even just the show, Adventures of Superman, is a very fascinating show. Just seeing where Superman started on screen. I know the Fleischer cartoons were before it, but like this is the first live action, regularly scheduled sort of show.
Right.
Kirk Allen doesn't really count because it was kind of a different thing. But
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but there are Kirk Allen devotees, and it was the times.
At some point, we'll be watching his work as well. We haven't got round to Kirk Allen just yet, but we haven't watched any Smallville yet either. To be fair, so there's a few Superman shows still on the horizon.
Yeah,
but,
that'd be great.
Yeah. So that'll be that. Thank you all so much for watching.
Okay.
We'll see you next week.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Viacom.